It's crazy, you know? At 29, I never thought I'd be in this spot. Here I am, living with my parents, and I'm the one footing the bill for everything. My name's Alex, and this whole thing started about a year ago when we moved to the city. Now it's not like I'm some bummed-out millennial who crashed back home because I couldn't make rent. Nope, I bought the place. The whole mortgage is on me, plus the groceries, the bills, the whole 9 yards. My parents, they don't pay a dime. Let me back up a bit. My mom and dad, Jessica and Kevin, are 54 and 57, both retired teachers. They'd been living out in the sticks for years, but once they retired, they were all about moving to the city. Said they were bored with the quiet life and wanted to be closer to the action, or so they said. I figured, why not? I'm a software engineer doing pretty well for myself, and the city definitely had better job prospects. Plus, they'd done a lot for me growing up, so I wanted to return the favor. You know, typical family stuff. We found a decent 3-bedroom house. It's no palace, but it's got a little backyard, a decent living room where we can all hang out, and well, 3 bedrooms, which was a step up. Since I'm paying all the bills, I snagged the master bedroom. Having my own bathroom and walk-in closet is a godsend since everyone else has to share. And that's where things started getting weird. They took my sister in, boxed up all my stuff, and now I'm not even invited to dinner. It's like I'm a stranger in my own house. Most of the time I work from home, so I turned the spare bedroom into my office. I really made it perfect, you know? 2 big monitors, a comfy chair, the works. Then when my folks came to stay, we made the other spare room into a guest room. Seemed easy enough at the time. Everything was going great, honestly. We all fell into a nice routine. My parents were so happy to be in the city. I worked, paid the bills, kept the house clean, and they did their thing gardening, watching TV, all the retiree stuff. Paying for everything wasn't a problem. I make a good salary and their retirement checks. Let's just say they weren't exactly rolling in dough. And hey, you don't charge family rent, right? But then, bam, things went sideways faster than you can blink. It all started with my mom just casually dropping it at breakfast like it was nothing. At first, I didn't think much of it. But then she kept going, saying my sister Diana and her husband Tom were thinking about moving to the city. Diana's pregnant and they could really use the support. Things weren't great for them, she explained. Back in their hometown, Tom, he's 32, and Diana, she's 31, they'd always kind of bounced from one bad situation to another. They weren't exactly poor, but they definitely weren't thriving either. So Diana being pregnant just complicated things even more, even though Mom had a different plan in mind. I figured they'd probably head to the city and get a tiny apartment. This is where I should have seen it coming, but I didn't. A few days later, she sat me down and said, "We asked Diana and Tom to come stay with us." She said it like it was nothing, just until they can get back on their feet. Her voice was all sweet and innocent. I just kind of nodded, thinking, sure, whatever. The plan was for them to hang around a bit before finding their own place. My parents never really bothered to ask if I was cool with them moving in. They just told me after the fact like it was already a done deal. But little did I know that was just the start of the chaos. Here's the thing, they showed up, and it was obvious they were there to stay. I was still trying to wrap my head around it when Diana and Tom showed up a week later, suitcases and all. I'm the one paying for everything, the groceries, the electricity, the mortgage, the whole shebang. Now I've got 2 more people to feed and take care of. My anxiety was already spiking. Nobody even bothered to ask if I was okay with it. Don't get me wrong, I love my sister. They just moved in like it was the most normal thing in the world. Family comes first, I guess. Diana's not exactly the most responsible person, and she's always getting into trouble, always needing someone to bail her out. Look, Tom's okay, I guess, but his whole vibe just rubs me the wrong way. He acts like he's owed something, just like Diana's husband. That's where everything started to go sideways. Diana started making these little comments a few days after they moved in. You know, the kind that seem harmless but actually get under your skin. She'd say stuff like, "Wow, this place is huge, it must be tough cleaning it all yourself." Or, "I can't wait for the baby to get here. We're going to need tons of room for all the baby stuff." At first, I didn't really think much of it, but then came the real kicker. One evening after I'd worked all day, Diana and Tom came up to me and said they wanted to chat. I thought, all right, maybe they'll finally admit they've been freeloading and eating all the food without lifting a finger. Nope. Instead, Diana, all casual, says, "So we've been thinking it would make more sense for us to take the master bedroom." I just stared at her. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "We need more space," Tom stated like it was a fact. "Now remember, I pay the entire mortgage. The baby's going to need a lot of stuff, and your room has a walk-in closet and a private bathroom. The house is in my name. I buy all the groceries, too. I've been supporting the whole family without asking for anything. And here they were asking me to give up my own bedroom. I was completely floored. I didn't even know how to respond at first. "No way," Diana said when I finally suggested. "Why don't you just use the spare room? It's huge and ready for company." A surge of arrogance hit me. "But that room doesn't have a walk-in closet and the baby needs space," she shot back. I looked at them both, trying to stay cool. I answered, trying to sound as solid as possible, "I'm not giving up my room." Tom was shocked that I wasn't just giving in. "Diana, you could take the guest room or find a place to stay," I said. She looked annoyed, and I knew things were about to get ugly. After that super awkward chat where they basically demanded I give up my room, I figured they'd realize how ridiculous they were being and drop it. Seriously, who in their right mind just expects the person paying for everything to just give up their space like that? Of course, that's not how things played out. Over the next few days, I started noticing little things. Diana and Tom were super chill, almost too much so. I hadn't said anything, but it was building up inside me. They'd leave their stuff everywhere. The living room was a disaster, shoes kicked off by the sofa, and Diana was already chatting about where to put the baby stuff, like the house was already theirs. That feeling of something about to crack. One day I had to work long hours. I work from home most of the time unless I have some unavoidable meeting. But one day I got home around lunchtime to grab a bite, and I found something totally bizarre. The second I walked in, my stuff, like all my things, were right there in the hallway. I knew what that meant, and my heart was already pounding, but I had to see it with my own eyes. My clothes were dumped on the floor, and my computer monitor was just sitting there unplugged, like someone was in the middle of moving it. And there was Diana, smack dab in my room, packing up the last of my things. When I walked in, she didn't even seem shocked. I couldn't believe she just looked at me like that. "Oh, hey," she said. "I'm just about done." I practically yelled, maybe louder than I wanted to. "What the hell are you doing?" She had the nerve to act all cool and collected, like it was no big deal, like it was the most normal thing ever. "Your mom said we could start moving our stuff in here. The baby's coming soon and we need the space," she told me. My blood was starting to boil. My mom isn't even paying the mortgage. My mom thought it was fine to let Diana and Tom take my room without even asking me first. I wasn't going to let this slide. "No," I said, walking into the room. "You are not moving into my room. I already told you guys to take the guest room." Diana didn't like that. She crossed her arms and gave me this look like I was the crazy one. "Nope, not having it. The guest room just isn't big enough for the baby, and there's no closet in there. We really need more room. I'm the one who's making the mortgage payments. I'm also the one who's been footing the bill for everything in this house. You and Tom aren't even chipping in. If you guys need extra space, you're more than welcome to go find somewhere else to live." Honestly, I was furious at this point, and I could tell Diana was starting to get annoyed too. But she wasn't backing down. She said your mom said it was cool, like that was the final say on the matter. That's when I lost it. I stomped back out of the room, grabbed my phone, and called my mom, who, by the way, wasn't even home. I didn't even let her say hi. The second she picked up, there was a long silence on the other end, like she didn't know what to say. "Mom, did you tell Diana and Tom they could move into my room?" I couldn't believe what she said. "Well, I thought it would be the best solution. They need the space, and you already have the office." I snapped, "It's not like you're using the room for much." "Are you serious right now?" My mom tried to smooth things over, saying it wasn't a big deal and that we're all family. But I was done listening. I pay the mortgage, I buy all the groceries, I pay all the bills, and you think it's okay for Diana and Tom to just take over my room? Diana must have heard me because she burst out the door looking really upset. "I'm not giving them my room. If they don't move their stuff, they're gonna need to find somewhere else to live." I swear Tom showed up right then. "You're really going to kick us out when there's a baby coming?" He was practically steaming like he'd heard all the commotion from outside. "What's the deal?" he asked, so I just laid it all out for him. "What's going on is your wife thinks she can just move into my room without even a word. And I'm telling you both, it's not happening. You can take the guest room or you can hit the road." Tom wasn't happy, going on and on about family and how I should be making sacrifices for them. He got all defensive, but honestly, I wasn't listening. Sacrifices? I'm the one paying for this whole damn house. What were they even contributing? Absolutely nothing. And now they think they can just move in and take over. I was yelling pretty loud by then, and it was clear neither of us was going to budge. I didn't even bother listening to my mom trying to get me to calm down. I was too angry to care about her apologies. Tom kept going on about how unfair I was being the baby and how families are supposed to stick together when things get tough. Then Diana stormed out, slamming the door, and Tom just stood there, staring at me like I was the bad guy. I'd had it. I turned to both of them and said, "You've got until the end of the day to get your stuff out of my room. If you don't, I'll do it myself." Honestly, I wasn't bothered by any of it. I spent the rest of the day in my office just trying to cool down. I wasn't gonna let them push me around in my own house, especially since I was the one footing the bill. I knew if I went out there again, it'd just be another fight. I didn't want anything to do with them, honestly. Deep down, I knew this was the beginning of it all. They weren't gonna back down, and I figured my mom would probably get involved again. But I wasn't gonna give up either. Not this time. After that whole thing with Diana and Tom, I thought maybe, just maybe, they'd finally back off. I mean, I made it super clear. My room was off limits, and they could either stay in the guest room or find somewhere else to live. To me, it was all pretty straightforward. Of course, things didn't exactly go the way I thought they would. I kept to myself. The next day, I was definitely not looking for more trouble. To be honest, I was still pissed off about everything that had happened. Working in the office. Mostly, I tried to act normal, but you could feel the tension in the air. When supper rolled around, I actually didn't mind the quiet. Everyone seemed to be avoiding each other, trying to ignore the huge problem we had. I could deal with Diana and Tom staying in the guest room, as long as they didn't cause any more problems. But then something happened that just pushed me over the edge. That evening, I went into the kitchen to grab some food. As usual, I was the one who'd bought everything. But when I opened the fridge, it was basically empty. We're talking about food I'd bought just 2 days before. Gone. I checked out the freezer and the same thing went down. It was so clear I knew my folks weren't eating that stuff. And neither was I. Who else could it be? Diana and Tom, of course. I was already steaming, but I tried to let it go. Whatever, I'll just grab more grub tomorrow. They probably just went in there and took whatever they wanted without even asking. But it was more than just the food. Mom walked into the kitchen, not even looking at me. When I went to sit down to eat, Mom was quietly dishing up plates for Tom, Diana, Dad, and herself. But not me. At first, I figured maybe she just forgot, so I hung back. She sat down after she finished loading everyone's plates, no lie. I felt my anger rising again as I stood there, watching them all start to eat. It felt like they were punishing me for sticking up for myself. Trying to chill out, I turned to my mom. "You didn't make me a plate." She barely glanced over. She just kept going, as casual as if she was talking about the weather. "You don't want to help the family, and you don't eat with the family." I couldn't believe my ears. She didn't even give me an answer. "Excuse me, I pay for everything in this house, the groceries, the mortgage, and now I'm being shut out." I got even angrier when Dad just sighed and kept eating like nothing was wrong. Diana and Tom just sat there with this smug attitude like they'd totally won. Diana even gave me a little smile as I walked past her. I couldn't take it anymore. No way was I gonna let them treat me like a stranger in my own house, the one I'd paid for. My head was spinning, so I just slammed the fridge door and bolted out of the kitchen. I knew exactly what I had to do. Straight to my room, grabbed my laptop, and started hunting down eviction notices online. I figured if they wanted to be disrespectful, they could find somewhere else to live. I'd had enough of their crap. This wasn't some free hotel. It took me about an hour, but I got the paperwork done. I made 2 sets of copies, one for my parents and one for Diana and Tom. But man, it was rough. They'd already crossed the line. It felt awful, even though I knew I had to do it. They'd been walking all over me for weeks, acting like the house was theirs, and then giving me the cold shoulder because I wouldn't put up with their insane demands. After I printed everything out, I walked into the living room. They were all just sitting there like nothing was happening. I wasn't going to take it anymore. I didn't say a word. Tom's face went completely white. "If you're not out of here by tomorrow, I'm calling the cops," he blurted out. He definitely wasn't expecting that. "You can't be serious," I said. "Oh, I'm serious," I replied. Tom jumped up and glared at me, but I didn't flinch. "I'm done," I said. "You've been living here for free, not lifting a finger, and now you think you can just take over my house? No way." "We're family," he protested. Yeah, well, I'm bigger than him, so I wasn't about to be scared of his little hissy fit. "We're family," he hissed, practically spitting the words at me. "You can't just kick us out." "Yeah, well," I said, stepping closer, "I'm the one paying for this place. Not you, not Diana, not Mom and Dad. If you can't be respectful, you can't live here." Diana, of course, started bawling like that would make a difference. "I'm pregnant. You're throwing us out on the street. What kind of brother does that?" "The kind of brother who's been footing the bill while you two freeload," I shot back. Tom looked like he wanted to argue more, but I could see it dawning on him that he'd lost. "You have 24 hours, I told him, and that's being nice. My mom, who hadn't said a word all day, suddenly piped up. "You can't do this, honey. They're your sister and her husband. They're family." I wasn't lying, and frankly, I was past caring. I pointed to the eviction notice she was clutching. "Already did it. You've got 30 days to find somewhere else to live. If you're not gone by then, I'm going to court." The room went dead quiet. My dad just stared at the table like he didn't know what to do with himself. Mom looked like she was crying, but I wasn't budging. This wasn't about being nice anymore. It was about survival. After a few minutes ticked by, I went back to my room and left them to stew. I had to stand up for myself. I couldn't let them keep taking advantage of me. I locked my door, sat at my desk, and took a deep breath. I never thought I'd actually kick my own family out, but it felt like the right thing to do. It was just proper. After they left, the house went totally silent and stayed that way. I was done letting people walk all over me. Nobody even tried to test me. No one even bothered to knock. I guess they knew I was serious this time. That night, I slept better than I had in ages. If they couldn't treat me with respect, they didn't get to be here. The next morning, after all the drama, I woke up and just laid there for a bit, staring up at the ceiling. I realized today was it Diana and Tom only had 24 hours left. The clock was really ticking now. Weirdly, I wasn't even mad anymore. I'd already made up my mind about what needed to happen. Now it was just a matter of seeing it through. As soon as I got up and went into the kitchen, I knew something was different. Not exactly tense, but calmer, like something big was about to go down. Since no one was in the kitchen, I figured I'd make my own breakfast. Diana and Tom's last grocery trip had left the fridge pretty empty, but I made something with what was left. While I ate, I thought about how fast everything had spiraled. Things had been good, you know? Not long ago, my mom and I were cool. I had a job, paid my bills, bought groceries, everything was smooth. Then when Diana and Tom showed up, everything changed. A little while later, I heard someone walking down the hallway. Crazy how fast things can turn upside down when people think they deserve stuff they haven't worked for, right? That's my dad, walking and all quiet like. He grabbed a coffee and sat down across from me. He just sat there for a minute, sipping his coffee, staring out the window. Then, boom, he drops this on me. Diana and Tom are leaving today. I didn't say anything right away. They decided to leave on their own, so I wasn't sure if he was reminding me or just letting me know. Whatever, I just nodded and kept eating. Then he said, real quiet like, they don't have anywhere to go. I stopped chewing and looked at him. They're gonna stay at a motel for a bit until they figure things out, he said. Even though a big part of me knew it was the right thing to do, a huge chunk of me felt awful. I'd given them enough time. I'd been way too nice for way too long, and if I didn't set some limits, they'd just keep taking advantage. I kept my voice steady. He didn't argue. No guilt trip, which was a shock. He didn't want it to end like this, but I really didn't have much choice. He just nodded and kept sipping his coffee. He knew I wasn't gonna back down this time. There was no going back after everything that happened. Diana and Tom started packing around noon. I mostly stayed in my room, trying to avoid another fight or any more of their passive-aggressive stuff. Then, not too long after, Tom knocked on my door. His voice got louder and louder down the hall, and I knew something was about to blow up. "You're really gonna let this happen?" he yelled, all pissed off as I opened the door. He looked just as angry as he had ever since I gave him that eviction notice. "You're just gonna kick us out like this?" I crossed my arms and leaned against the door frame, trying to stay calm. "I gave you 24 hours, I said. I told you what had to happen." He shook his head, his jaw tight. "We're family, man. You don't do this to family." I took a deep breath, trying to chill out. "Families don't take advantage of each other," I told him. "This isn't about nothing. You've been living here for weeks, not paying a dime, mooching off me. I'm paying the mortgage, the food, everything. And instead of being thankful, you tried to steal my room and kick me out. That's not happening." Tom didn't say anything for a second. I could see he was steaming, but he knew he was beat. He knew I was right, even if he wouldn't admit it. Finally, he just said, "So that's it, huh? You're just throwing us out." I repeated what I'd said the day before. He just looked at me, then turned and walked away without another word. "You can figure out somewhere else to live," I said to his back. "Or you can stay in the guest room and start respecting my space. If you can't do that, then yeah, you're gone." I let out a huge sigh and closed the door. Man, it was tough, even though I knew it had to happen. Diana and Tom took off around 2 or 3. I didn't want them to go, but it wasn't like some big dramatic goodbye or anything. The house felt totally different after they were gone. They just loaded up their car and drove away, no words to me. It was quieter, a weight lifted. That day, my parents weren't much help. They were still reeling from everything. My mom looked miserable, even though she didn't say a word about it. Maybe she finally got it, that I wasn't the one who started this whole mess. Later that night, Mom knocked. Diana and Tom had pushed me way too far. She came in, sat on the edge of my bed, and just stared at the floor for a while. Finally, she whispered, "They're gone." I just nodded. "I never thought it would come to this," she said. Looking at her, I saw how much we'd been stressing her out. Some of the anger started to melt away. "It's not like I didn't want to help," I said, "but you guys treated me like I was invisible, like my feelings and my space didn't matter at all." She groaned and nodded. We sat there for a few minutes quiet. You're right, she finally said. We should have seen it coming. I broke the silence, blurting out, I don't want you and Dad to leave. She looked heartbroken, but I think she was starting to understand. But if things don't change, I said, I can't live like this anymore. She gave a little nod and slowly got to her feet. We'll get through this, she said. Things are gonna change, I swear. As she walked out, I felt this weird mix of feeling better and being totally wiped out. Even though Diana and Tom's problem was dealt with, my parents still had a lot to work on. I knew it wouldn't be a walk in the park, but it seemed like they were finally willing to listen. For the first time in ages, I felt like I could actually relax. The house was quiet, and the worry that had been hanging around was gone. At least I had my own space back. It wasn't a perfect fix. The most important thing was I got my respect. Looking back, I realized that sometimes you gotta make tough choices to protect yourself, even if it goes against what your family wants. It's about drawing the line and demanding the respect you deserve, not being selfish. Sitting there in my room, finally alone and at peace, I couldn't help but feel proud. I don't know what's coming next for me and Diana and Tom, or with my parents, but I knew one thing. I wouldn't let anyone, family or not, walk all over me again. I had stood up for myself, told the truth, and taken charge of my life. It wasn't pretty, and it sure wasn't easy, but it was absolutely crucial. As I fell asleep that night, I knew that whatever came my way the next day, I was ready to face it head-on, with a new strength and self-worth that no one could ever take away. Okay, so thanks for hanging out and checking out this crazy family stuff I'm about to spill. If you're into this kind of wild Reddit family business, don't skip out on those alerts, so you're in the know for what comes next.